Let's do the normal. Let's see how my audio is for us. Making sure that's working good. So if you guys can jump in and let me know if this is working well or not, that'd be great. Let's do the normal. Let's see how my audio is. You're gonna hear me again now. Hold on. Sorry, I had that running in the background. Okay, so X-winging it. Let's get moving, get going. I'm gonna put in the chat. Hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Making sure I can see that you should be able to hear me. All right, let's get going. I'm going to start building some more out here of the cannon. So I'm going to come over here and look at this cannon piece. Let me hide this. Hold on, I'm just going to hide some stuff so I can keep an eye on the chat for you guys. Making sure I can see everything that's happening. All right. Where did my check go? There it is. Okay. All right. Can anybody jump in? Yeah, okay, there we go. All right, so I'm going to select this cannon. And let's go ahead and duplicate it. Because I want to make the portion that it's kind of sitting on. So we already got that in the folder. I'm just going to duplicate this. We're going to rename this cannon base. That way it's the base. Let's take a look at this. Let's center it. Let's put it centered based upon. Let's look at just this. I would say this is the important part for me. That portion. So we'll draw it once. Let's center based upon that. So that way, visibility wise, I'm only looking at that. Okay. The new features will be announced coming up. So we have a special stream next week for you all, which will highlight what the new features are. Let me just turn off the screensaver so we don't need that on anymore. That'll be coming up next week. So we have a stream next week, the 3rd, and you would want to join that. John, go ahead and throw in your question. Because unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to stay as long today as I normally do. I've had something come up. So anyways, here, I'm looking visually at just this part of that so I can center, because I want to build something that's sitting right below this. And I want to replace this, actually. So I'm going to replace it with a cube. So I'm going to do this, and now it's replaced. And I don't want any spans right now. I definitely don't want it to be a sphere. So let's crease it. There we go. And then the nice thing about duplicating is I get all the previous settings I've put. And in this case, I wanted array mesh on to be still available to me, right? That's something that I want to have to work with. So I'm going to keep working like that. And let's just put this. This is going to be a base here. Okay, so we've got an array there and there and there. Let's adjust this array. Oops. All right, so to do that, I prefer to adjust the array with the transpose line. It's just better than using the slider. I prefer that. Okay, so let's take a look here. Definitely, so I'd say let's go -0.555 now that I have. Okay, negative point. Whoops. say that looks good. We got this, we got this, we got that. Okay. Mirroring over the Y. That's what I want. Turn that off. Okay, so now we have this in multiple locations. What I want to do now is kind of make a little base here. So I'm going to make sure that's centered. And we're going to just widen this up a lot more. Let's use some visibility thing here as well. So in the subtools, I'm going to switch to visible 2, which then this is showing new visibility for me. So I definitely want those on. And then I want to start seeing what else I might want to have on. For me, I just want to have really quick, I want to have those on there so I can see this being built the way I want it to be built, because what I want is I want to replicate a little bit of what is there. And then let's go ahead and turn on the cannons themselves, which are pieces in here. And then this is going to be a stored state for me, because I want this to stick out just a little bit more, like that. Make some kind of area there, and then I'm going to put a little bit more thickness. Again, I'm planning to 3D print this, right? So I want to have just a little bit more volume than normal, maybe that would be in the original thought process of this or design, just so it looks a little bit better. No, this is the X-Wing from Star Wars. Okay, so in essence, now I have a V2, I can go back to V1 and everything turns back on. So now as I'm building this, I can switch to this and kind of just, I can have some focus that I want to have a focus on, and then go back and see how's it all coming together. So this is kind of what I like about this process of using those visuals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's what they're there for. Hey Rich, doing okay? Thanks for asking. Busy, 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 busy. Again, we've got a new version coming out. We're going to be highlighting that in our special feature stream next week on the 3rd. You guys will be able to get all that information next week. So John, your question was the Transpose Smart Mask is not allowing me to drag, rotate, and alpha, holding control like it used to. Is it me or was that disabled? So the Transpose Smart Mask, okay, and then you're using the Transpose line, right? So there might be something here that is possibly broken that I got to take a look at and get fixed. So let's divide this up. Let me switch to the Transpose Smart. You're using this one, which is about this growing out, right? This. So I'm assuming you're switching to this, right? And then you're wanting to what? Have an alpha on this, in essence, so that when you are holding control, you want that to happen, right? That's what you're looking for, I'm assuming, right? So this could be, looks like this is broken because we're now not allowing an alpha to be a selectable item with Transpose line. So I have to look, this is due to changes that we've done, right? That we've done over the years, and things that we've done with the brush system that now this one item could be broken. So I'm assuming that's what you're looking for. The ability to, when you're holding control, the Transpose line actually can have an alpha on it, right? So it's all of them. It's not just that one. Yeah, this is just broken because, as you can see, it's trying to do it, but it can't because there's no alpha, right, allowed right now while we're doing this. I'll have to look into that. I'll have to make a note and see. I know we made some changes for the version for brushes, some things that we had to do. So it could be that got broken in some changes we've done. I'll look into it, but thanks for bringing that up. Oh, you were trying to add text that way? Sure, you could use Spotlight, same thing, if you wanted to. Or you could just use the stencil, right? The stencil does that. The stencil is actually better than the Transpose line. That's the way I would. Have you used the stencil? Like, that's probably the way I would. If you're just trying to do that and you're trying to do like a mask or something, it's not working with either of the transposes. They're all the same except they have different masking. So even this is just regular transpose. So, but let's see transpose classic that you're bringing up. We can try. So let's switch to this. See, it's not allowing us. In essence, the alpha is grayed out, right? So we need to be able to click on the alpha. It's grayed out. With this brush, we're not allowing an alpha on. That's the problem. So I have to look into that. Let me switch back to the transpose. There we go. And put back in the gizmo. Let me turn the gizmo back on. Okay. Sorry, where was I? I was reading another question. Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. So I was going to show you stencil. Have you used it? So there's a lot of ways to do obviously text now. You could also just write the text because there's a plugin that is called Text 3D and Vector Shapes, and then you just create the geometry however you want. You just say new text and then you just write what you want, and then whatever font's on your computer, that's what this is going to use, right? And then this is geometry. Okay, and then you can manipulate the geometry a little bit, right? So I can say I want a little bit of a bevel in there, so now it's got a bevel. Then I can say, you know what, I want to up the resolution so it's just even better, cleaner. And then this is now topology, right? This is going to be better than trying to use a mask and push in and out. And then you can weld this. But if you wanted to, okay, going back to this, here we'll get rid of the hello. We'll get rid of that. So stencils is in essence an alpha system, right? So if let's go to here, the alpha, let's grab this. This will be better, okay? Then you can go to the stencil itself, and then now you can say from alpha, right? And then it's gonna say, hey, what do you want? And then now it's a stencil, right? And then the space bar, pull up this dime, and you see there's move, scale, rotate, and move and rotate. So the move just positions it where it wants, right? And then I can scale it up, scale it down. And then so now the model can be here, the stencil stays there. And then you can use the stencil itself, and we're gonna turn this off, to do whatever you want, right? So there is ways then, right? So if you do this, this would be your approach. You're thinking, hey, I wanna mask it off. So the stencil is in essence the mask, right? So this isn't going to work this way, but now that it's there, okay, if we turn from alpha again, this is now I just switch to a brush, and then I sculpt, right? And then it's seeing that. So what I tend to use with this is the layer brush, okay? And then like I get rid of the alpha, and then you can crank your Z intensity up, right? And then you could do stuff like this, right? So I would probably drop your focal shift down a little bit so it's have some softness to it. You could put an alpha on there if you wanted to, but I don't tend to do that. I tend to just use the stencil as is, right? But then if you're doing this, okay, you could also, here, let's make this be a little bit different. Interesting. Let me reset the brush. I think it's too strong. Right, back to the layer. So you could do a drag rec as well, and then just be dragging this out, right? And then that's being used. And then of course, if you add one more element to this, if you throw a layer on this, right? So if you do that, that's on a layer. So now you don't need the stencil anymore. And now it's on a layer, and then you can dial it up, switch it to negative. And then obviously this slider allows you to go 5 times stronger, and then you're using that to do this. So you could also go about doing that. If you're trying to have something that you want floating around, obviously you could also use Spotlight to do the same thing. The one benefit I'd say of stencil that Spotlight does not have, and really the only thing that Spotlight does not have that stencil has, is let's we'll stick with this one. Okay, and now when you're doing like this, and see how it's moving around, so it's just flat, but in the stencil, you can tell it to be a wrap mode, not like musical wrap, but now you can see it's wrapping to the surface. So this is the one benefit of stencil, right? And then stencil does have repeating ability, okay? So you can repeat the alpha multiple times if you want to as well. So if you have a tile of alpha like this works out, so you can scale things up, right? So this is where you can move things around. So this could be a benefit of stencil over Spotlight. Otherwise, Spotlight has way more controls, right? Because you can also paint with Spotlight, so technically you could poly paint and then mask from the poly paint. Just multiple ways. Okay, let me see. John, does that help? I'm catching up on you guys' chat right now. How can I save with backface masking as a default? Okay, so Blood Rapture, if you want to save over top of default brushes, you got to save over top of where they live. Okay, so if you're trying to say you want clay buildup with backface on, right? This brush, when ZBrush launches, it goes to a certain folder, looks at that brush, and then it's loading it into the application. So we have set the defaults for our default brushes. So if you want backface masking on, you in essence got to save over top of where we have this brush being seen by ZBrush. Okay, so this is something I actually make a good point. I should probably just save as the new default. You know, you guys are giving me features right now. I like it. All right, so right now, currently, you would have to do a save as, okay? And then for me, as you can see, I'm on Apple. I'm on a Mac. So I'm going to switch back to columns. It's just easier to look at. So then you would go ZBrush 2025 in my case, ZData, and then brush presets, and then here's where the brush is. So you got to make sure you save it the exact same name, right? Or you just save this out and call it clay buildup backface or whatever, or backface like BF, I don't know, maybe clay buildup. And in that case, you could just say Z startup, right? And then now you want this to be part of the brush presets here, and you can save it right there. And then ZBrush, so in essence, you save another version of this brush, one with backface on, one with backface off, and then you can save it there. But if you want to save over top the existing, you got to go here in your Z data, okay? And then the brush presets, and this is where all the default brushes that are loading in the main menu when you hit the B key. So then this is where you would need to be, and then you would just need to save over top of clay buildup and make sure it's the exact same name, then you're fine. Okay, and as far as Sculptress not working with Move Brush, it never has. We don't have that working with the Move brushes. Sculptress, that's one of the brushes it does not work with. It works more with sculptural brushes. Like you have to actually be doing a brush stroke. So the Move, so in your case, Move, I would use probably maybe Snake Hook instead, because that does work with Sculptress. And in fact, I encourage it to work with Sculptress, right? So to your point here, okay, let's keep it in here. Let's turn on Sculptress Pro, right? So let's say clay, right? We'll turn on Sculptress Pro. Now it's on. So obviously now as I sculpt, tessellation happens. As you said, if we switch to Move, you can see your icon turns to red and you can't do that. But if you turn to Snake Hook, right, one of the snake hooks, either one of them, those will work. And you could use that if you wanted to as like to start moving things around, and then it'll add the tessellation as you're moving, right? So instead of just doing like that, just, you know, go bigger brush size and start moving things around, and it'd be like having the Move brush with Sculptress Pro. This is what I would do. So hopefully that helps. That's how you can get around that the Move brush does not have the ability to use Sculptress Pro. Rich, yeah, we are planning a ZBrush Summit this year. I'm hoping to get the news out for that soon. It's awesome that we got to meet up. I love that. I love that we were able to meet. I love that you guys are able to come out to the summit. Unfortunately, though, most likely this ZBrush Summit will be online only, though. We most likely will not be doing an in-person ZBrush Summit. But we will be having one, and I'll be announcing it hopefully soon, within the next month or two. Wait, so I'm catching up, John. Oh, you're replying to something. Okay. So you could apply, again, that mask, John, right? You could use it at Spotlight. You can use it with stencil. You could also just apply it to the brush, right? So also, because you're asking about the transpose, you could also, if we're looking at it in the case of that, what you're saying, you could also just use the transpose this mask rectangular. Then you can grab an alpha, right? I can grab any alpha, and when I draw it out, then right, you can use spacebar. With spacebar control, you can move it where you want to. Right? Obviously, you don't have rotation ability. That's what you've lost. But there are multiple ways to get around right now. Okay. Oh, great to hear that you've enjoyed the ZBrush Summit, Cat. That's great. Yeah, we want to continue those for sure. Can you have a UI button to rotate the model in screen space? Currently, the shortcut hard to use. Okay, so wait, Vishal, I'm wrapping my head around your question right now. Can we have a UI button to rotate the model in screen space? Okay, are you referring to... Well, let's grab something that we can see a rotation better. Okay, so just to make sure I'm understanding, when you're saying rotate in screen space, I'm assuming you don't mean like moving it in the physical world. More of like this, where you're just trying to move your camera around to look at what you want to look at. I'm assuming that's what you're referring to. Is that correct? Because you can use also this to do 3/4 changes, right? This is one way you could do that. Then obviously, like if I'm looking, there is also hidden things like this that you can do. If you could expand a little bit more on your question to make sure I can give you the right answer, that'd be great. To make sure I understand exactly what you're meaning by, hey, the button to rotate the model in screen space. Because there is a button right here. If that's what you're looking for, that's what this is. That's this button right here. If that's what you're looking for. So I'm not sure if that answers the question for you. But if you want to keep throwing it in there, it'd be great. Hey, does layers not work with polypaint only? I've tried making a layer to store paint projection and it won't work. No, the layers can store just polypaint, just masking, and just sculpting, or it can store all three on one layer. That is possible. But when you're doing I'm assuming then you're doing a project all is what you're doing. If you can elaborate on that, I'm assuming that's what you're doing. But in the sake of waiting for that, we switch to the paintbrush. I'm going to fill this with some white, right? And then let's just say we'll give it some red. And then now let's make a layer. And then now let's make a blue. And now we've got blue, right? So this is now on the layer, right? So now it's blending down. That's why it's kind of turning that different color. So this is just only polypaint on the layer. Okay, and so now you are doing, so let's duplicate this. And then you are doing, here, let's fill this color, fill object. I'm going to turn off the eyeballs and mouth. And now what you're asking to do is you want to come through layer. And then you want, let's delete this layer. All right, and let's fill it now with color, fill object. Okay, so we have no color, and then we have this version that has color. So they're both there, they're both on, and then you're making a new layer on this one, right? And then you're trying to do a projection. right? So you're doing the subtool projection through here, project, and then you're doing color, and you only want color, and then you're doing a project all, right? That's what you're trying to do, right? So, yeah, that doesn't. It's just like the same thing. Fill object does not work with a layer. However, we could try. Let's try this. Let's go up one. Let's make an undo. I haven't tried this yet. NC and then do a project history. Yeah, that still doesn't work. Yeah, something that just isn't going to work. But wonder if we, hold on, wonder if we could, I got an idea here. Let's put the layer back on in record mode. And now that we have a history, let's see, you could probably start using this, but yeah, that's projecting but not giving me what I want quality wise. Well, let's turn this off. Oops. And let's turn all the RGB on all the way. Okay, so this is projecting the history, which is going to be on a layer because it's a brush stroke. It's an actual brush stroke. But it's a projection, so it's not getting all the paint right there that we would want. Yeah, so add it to my list of things that we have to add as an option for ZBrush. You would love to see that mask feature in the iPad version. What mask feature, Kat? Can you remind me which one you would like to see? It might already be there. Oh, you're talking about the hidden thing? Yeah, there is no option because it needs interaction by you. So yeah, so you're talking about this hidden one with the shift key. So once you click on shift and then click on the canvas and then let go of shift, doing this. Yeah. Yeah, we'd have to see about adding that as a button that on the desktop. Obviously on the iPad you can do that with your fingers. But on the desktop you don't have that ability. So we'd have to add it as an option for sure. Yep, another good feature request to think about for sure. Absolutely. Okay, I think I got caught up to everybody, yeah? At least where we were. Come back to this guy. Yeah, I've got already that one kind of on my list, how we can do that. It's also, it'd be nice to just mirror the model. Like, not necessarily physically mirror the model, but mirror the canvas like you can in Photoshop too. Just to see what's going on there. That'd be a nice addition too. Okay. All right. Got caught up in the questions. Let me get back to this. All right. I don't like this, how this is. So I'm going to insert an edge. I'm going to insert a multi-edge, which the new ZBrush modeler will now have the ability to snap. So, which is going to be awesome. I won't have to do this little trick anymore. Well, technically don't have to do the trick anymore for me. All right. And then I want that. And I am going to, I'm going to add a little more to this. Why not? Let's actually move this. Let's completely slide this. I'm going to slide this way up here, I would say. And let's symmetrically, let's see, probably the Z. No Y. Let's turn on, let's see, do I have my local on? And turn on local dynamic as well. There we go. I wanted the Z. Insert single edge loop. Let's get close to that one. Let's go. Yeah, let's go that far. Paint that up. Q-mesh single. Change those poly groups. Just add a little something a little more interesting. You know what, actually, now that I think about it, because where I'm going with this let's slide these way closer. Let's do something more like that. And then now let's do that. Make that be new. Let's divide it. I don't like the look of that, so let's just crease it all. Give me something more like that. I don't want the corners as rounded, so I'm going to now insert an edge there. Just make those corners a little bit more what I'm looking for. Something like that. Yeah. And I think I'm now, because I did that, I'm going to bring this way down more. More in that realm. And I think I'm also, let me switch to my masking pen. I'm going to switch and make this be a lot more, less raised surface. I'll live probably more around there. Okay. All right, and then now I want something that I need this to sit on, obviously. So let's copy these. Let's turn it into a cube. Right now I can keep doing a crease all, and then now that is right there. And I'm going to say I want that to live more in that realm. Make it be skinnier. Again, because I'm going to 3D print this, I don't want to go too skinny for sure. And then now let's make it go there. Let's solo this out so I can take a look at this, what I'm working with here. All right, let's center this. Center it there. Let's go right about there. Make sure I have this. Let's go a little bit wider there. Perfection, that's what I say. Let's mask this off. Let's bring this inside. All right, and then now this needs to be a lot less. Let's turn these back on so I can see what I'm working with here. Okay, I want to go right around there. And again, I'm thinking 3D printing wise. I think I want to go a little bit. Oops. I'll go a little bit wider. Center that. I'll go a little bit more. Just to make sure. I don't want this to break off. Right? I want to make sure that gives me what I'm looking for. Okay, it might not be 100% accurate to what the X-Wing is, but that's okay. Again, I'm making my version. I gotta do some stuff for 3D printing. All right, let's insert an edge loop up here. Let's do a couple edge loops here now. Let's do one there. Let's do another one there. Let's see, I'm thinking what I want to do here. Okay, I think that's good. Then I'll do another one there. Okay. And then let's now do a multi-insert. Keep the polygroups right now. And I want to turn off that and have interaction again. That's pretty good. That'll work for me. Okay. And now what I want to do is I want to take this. Let's take this face here. Okay, let's see. Did I make a copy? Oh yes, I have two versions. I have two versions. Let's scroll this out, and then okay, and then let's delete it. Okay, and then now I want this down. Do that again. Let's go this direction actually for there. And direction in this. Okay, and then now I would say let's move these points some more. I'm going to go more in that realm. Okay. Just some kind of base shape in there. I think I'm going to add a little bit more in this as well. I think I'm going to, let's insert another edge loop there, and then let's go one more like this, and then let's Q mesh this out. And let's do that. Let's do a crease all. Oops. And that way I can look at it smooth. Let's see what that looks like. I'm being picky here. I don't like how wide it is, so I'm going to just skinny this up a little bit more. I'm going to live more in that world. I'm going to live more there. All right, now I want to add, okay, that looks good. We got a little something there. I'm going to add another little element to this, I think, for me. Let's go ahead and say, let's take these, okay, which, since they're all the same polygroup, I'm going to say, let's take, yeah, I'm going to do an inset. I'm going to do flat and polygroup, and then do something like this. Let's go more. Okay. And then do this. We'll shrink it down. I don't want this. I don't want that. Make that its own polygroup. Then let's just do an extrude. Polygroup all. I don't want snapping to happen. And I need on this side first to do the same thing here. So let's select these. Let's make sure we have the same polygrouping here before we go down that rabbit hole that we don't want to go down. And then Control W that. Okay, and then now we will extrude polygroup all. I don't want any snapping to happening, so that's good. Crease it all, throw it on there. Just a little bit of layer complexity for me goes a long way. It just adds another little touch element. Okay, and I think we need some stuff. We need some things. We need something in here for sure. I want to add something there. So let's put something in there as well. Put a little, some kind of greeble for sure, I think is where I want to go with that. So let me catch up now in your guys' chat. Okay, I think you missed my first question. I was asking if there can be an option to reduce the size of the white border around the canvas so it's easier to navigate. Reduce the size? No, you're talking about this white border? No. There's no way. You can turn it off now. That's all you can do. You can't do anything else. Okay? That's all you can. There's no way to do anything else as far as changing that white border. You can't adjust the size of it. You can't adjust the thickness of the border itself. There's nothing you can do that. But you can turn it off if you want it off. If that was what you were asking. Okay, moving on. Okay, are there any cases in which you prefer the old Gizmo to the new one? Are there any features of the old Gizmo you love and use which can't be achieved using the new Gizmo? Yeah, there's a couple things. Number one, I would prefer using the Transpose line for posing, especially organic, because you can use it and there's better things to do for that you just can't do with the Gizmo 3D element piece. Let's save this really quick. We'll do a save next. Okay, so there is a couple things for sure that the Transpose line can do that the Gizmo 3D cannot do. And there's some advantages. Okay, so for example, if we're gonna go and load a model, let's load him. All right, and so now let's just look at just fingers as an example. We go here, right? So obviously you can mask out. There's a new masking. Of course, I can hold the Alt key, snap, and then it's aligned right in that area. And then obviously you can start posing this way. Well, if you switch to the Transpose line, right, this has always had snapping ability, right? This is the whole point of it. It's like, hey, snap here to there, okay? But what you can do here, though, that's important, is these. So you can use these and do different kinds of bending here that you can't do with the other one. So for example, I might consider doing, let's say I'll go from here to here instead, right? And then you can pose like that, but you can also do other ways of moving along this. So the Alt key is going to allow you to do different things, right? So this is in the moving actions, but if you switch to rotate, okay, and I come out here, you can see this rotates very different now, right? So if I rotate like this, or do I want to rotate like this, right? So for example, I would in this scenario, because the way I got the mask, I might want to do something more like that. And then I tend to try and act this as a bone. So then I position it more in the middle of the finger. Align it a little bit more where I want it. And I need to look at, we're going to need to look at this. I don't like it's, okay, there. And then position it there. But now if I hold the Alt key, so you can move the finger like this. Right, so if I did a stronger mask like that, hold the Alt key, and now you can move the finger more. This is a more natural bend to me than trying to just do a regular rotation, right? Especially if you're trying to rotate like that. So normally you would probably say you want, it's the opposite. You want the beginning of the line there, and then now you want to rotate, right? So you can see it's very different. So this is one thing that is beneficial to the Transpose line, that you have that Alt key ability, especially with rotation. Something else that you have, if we look, here we'll make this a poly mesh. Let's look at just this. Let's shrink it, okay, and say, let's look at this now. Everything's masked off. If you now use the Transpose line, so I'm dead center, this I use this a lot, especially when I have a Dynamesh. Because right now, low polygon, if I want to do an inset like I just did on my X-Wing, I would just use the modeler. The problem is, what if this is a Dynamesh? So I'm going to show first low polygon so you can just get a visual. So if I switch to scale and hold the control key, you can actually do an inset, right? And then now if I'm not holding the control key, it's just adjusting the scale of this, right? So I made an inset there because then now I can say, oh, now switch to move. And then move has an extrude, just like that. And you can extrude. Then I can say, all right, let's go back to the center, switch back to that scale, inset again, right, where you want it. And then now I can say move, and then I'll just move it down. Like this kind of a thing you can do, right? So if we go backwards, and then we turn on Dynamesh, now your problem is, okay, well, what if your model's like this? It's way more dense, and I need to do an inset, right, on this. So that's where then this can come into play, right? You can do stuff like that where I've masked off. I center it. So we'll do it like this. Center it like this. And then now if I am in scale mode, and if I hold control out here, I can do an inset. So like this is an advantage of Transpose line that's not in a Gizmo 3D. So there's stuff like that that's available to you as well. And the transpose line we've done other things with feature-wise too, even to the point if I want to do other things with this, like move another subtool, if I append, let's say a cone, here right now we'll just switch to this and do this, and then do that, let's move it out here into space, right? So now if I want to, I can use the transpose line, okay? And now contacts has been changed to using the transpose line, click that point to here, store that, and then apply, and then it moves it to that contact point, right? So the transpose line can do this, the Gizmo can't. So because you have to click first that point that you're interested in, and then where do you want it to live? There, right? And then you store it, and then you apply it, and then it gets moved to there. So there are things like that where the transpose line takes advantage over the Gizmo. There's some advantages for sure. Does that answer that question for you? All right, my final feature request is scrolling option to navigate in subtools palette. Currently you have to drag with a tiny orange slider, which is a bit difficult. Okay, so you want to scroll. You can scroll with a mouse if you wanted to. We did have that ability. Like, we did have that be able to control this, because you can assign your mouse actions to this in essence. So on the desktop, we would just need some kind of scroller wheel. We have to come up with something UI-wise. What's going to do on the iPad? That's easy, right? You just flick your finger and then it works. On the desktop, it's a little more challenging. It's a little more thought process and UI thoughts that we'd have to jump through and think about that. But me personally, even like when I'm on this guy's got 40 subtools, I personally, but obviously that doesn't mean anything. We definitely still need to add that. Obviously, I use the Alt key, tapping, and I don't go in here to do that. There is another way to look at your subtools, but it is broken right now. I know for a fact it's broken, but so there's this. So we got to fix this though. I know it's causing problems on the Windows side. In fact, it's actually causing a crash on the Windows side. So this is like the brush palette. So you can look this way at your subtools as well, and then this is going to work like the brush palette. If you're naming things, you can just look at letters and see things. So, but obviously you can't use this right now because we got to get it fixed. We just found the crash, so we got to get that fixed. Okay, but it's a good thought. Okay. Used to have a countdown for each event. Any chance of it coming back? It's hard to tell at a glance when someone is streaming. Now I don't even know when time zone those dates are in. Yeah, I got to talk to the web team. We had to do a whole bunch of website changing, moving things around. So I think some of the options that used to be part of the calendar got lost. I need to follow up with the web team now on that. I'll follow up with them, because also the email reminder's not there anymore. Right, so I'll follow up. But you can get reminded on YouTube. So whatever is made there will create an event now on YouTube. We have sometimes that if there's events, but these streams don't have those creating an event automatically. Obviously, the stream that we have next week on the 3rd, there's an event there that obviously with your time zone that you could go get. So I'll have to see. I'll look into that. Okay. Is there a way the developers can make an actual history button instead of control tapping on the slider? A lot, and with long history, it gets tight. Yeah, well, John, that's if you are not using the iPad, that's kind of what we've did on the iPad. It's got a new UI. So a lot of stuff we're doing on the iPad is also experiments, not just to get it working on the iPad, but also experiments to us start thinking about what we're going to be doing with the UI on the desktop, because we are looking at what we can do with the desktop UI for sure. So it now lives in its own little pop-up window menu. So these are things now we have that on the iPad and we have this on the desktop, where we can maybe, the desktop can have that same feeling and married, and then we can look at that, because there is a button in the iPad version that allows you to just store your undo history. And you don't control tap at all. So yes, we are thinking about stuff like that. Okay. 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 Good. Sorry, I'm just reading through what you guys are saying. I want to learn sculpting, but whenever I try it, I get afraid and frustrated, which results I left it. How can I achieve your dream goal? Suggest me a path to master it. I would say the biggest problem when you're trying to learn sculpting is sometimes you dive right into just trying to do, like, even like this. I'm trying to make an X-wing. Honestly, I would not try to go something like this big, this large. And that's not how I taught myself personally. I looked at a video of someone creating something from beginning to end, which we have a lot of that on our YouTube channel, that even myself or Ian or old school Joseph Drust or Thomas or Daisuke have done. But I say do it simple. Like, get easier first. Like, don't try to do such huge, massive projects. So what I mean by that is, if we grab just like a plane, right, and say, hey, can you even sculpt an ear? This is going to help you understand, like, navigations. This is going to help you switching brushes, anything like that, right? So if I say, okay, this will help you find what your favorite brushes are. If I'm sculpting an ear, just grab a plane and say, let me just sculpt an ear, right? So obviously an ear just kind of has some kind of C shape, right? Then I say, okay, there needs to be some volume buildup here for the ear, right? And then this is where also we'll start learning about subdivision levels. You're like, oh, okay, I'm getting something there, but I still don't have exactly what I want, right? Because as I start now pushing in on the ear, so we have an ear canal, we start going, okay, well, it's getting very faceted. This is then my eye and understanding sculpturally, I'm at a point where I now need to divide up so that I can kind of start refining the shape a little bit more, smoothing it back, right? And start having a little bit more of a realistic now buildup of this. This is going to help you learn to sculpt the right way, in my opinion, and not just start going crazy and divide up. I see that as a problem as well. But I see little studies like this is going to make you make bigger jumps, honestly, than just trying to do some huge model right out the gate. Like this, you'll have huge jumps with this, because then you're focusing also on just one simple aspect. And I think this is a great study for all of us, is just do this. And then, one day do an ear, another day do a mouth, right? And then another day do an eye. And this will help you start. And then, what brushes do I want to start that I like to use? Okay, I really like the Damien Standard, so that I can start digging into surfaces and really start making that hone into kind of the ear shape that I would want, right? Making it kind of, okay, it needs to dip in, come across. Okay, there needs to start being a cavity through here, so let me try to land that cavity a little bit more, right? And I think the biggest thing that I see people have problems with, it's okay if like you're learning, it's not going to be perfect right out the gate, right? And that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Every sculpt has a point where it does not look good, no matter what, and no matter who it is. There's always rough things happening to us, right? And I would say it's just stuff like this, so you can start to learn the basics of, hey, how do I smooth? How do I switch brushes? Okay, how do I understand? Okay, I don't like the shape. Let me walk down a level, switch to move, and say, okay, I need this to kind of spread down more like that. Let's get a better ear shape. I want more of an arching ear like this. Maybe it comes more like that, right? I have an understanding if I go to a lower level, I can shape this. And as I go up, we're populating it up. And then now you see I'm kind of starting to sculpt an ear, right? Again, don't worry about it trying to be perfect. Just understand landing the ability of that. You're at least landing the anatomy that is correct, makes sense, right? And then that way you're also at the same time, you're learning a little bit about anatomy at the same time and not trying to take all the anatomy at once, right? It's just, let me take a little bit at a time that I can, right? That is how I have made my biggest personal leaps and bounds in sculpting, is I've taken little chunks of things and given myself little lessons is what I've done, right? So this would be, I'd say, as a recommendation. Then I would say now, okay, I've had a couple little lessons for 1 week, okay, and then the next week, now do a bust, right? And then now all you're doing is putting in practice. Well, I've already sculpted some ears, I've already sculpted some eyes, I've already sculpted some mouth. Now let me put it all in place on a face and understand that, and what are the important landing marks of that, right? And again, if I'm like gonna go to that direction where I am sculpting something like a face or skull, I gotta understand, you know what? Again, be very gestural, right? Okay, well, let me just get a general shape of a head here, right? Don't overthink it. This is also what I see a lot of. Get the main important marks. And I think also what makes a difference is bone. If you take the time, even just a little bit, to put kind of landing marks for your bone structure, right out the gate, oh, that's beautiful. It's going to start being a lot better and land a lot more correct and authentic, especially when you start laying down muscles. The biggest thing I see from people is, let's throw Dynamesh on since I'm sketching here. Dynamesh, right? And in fact, I'm going to go lower with my Dynamesh. Okay, and then like this, like it's okay. So grab a skull, a bone, like I have one. Where did he go? He's here somewhere. My Cintiqs, I think, block him. Okay, so I have like a human little skull that I look at for something like this, right? But then once you get to the point where you've sculpted it so many times, you start remembering landmarks. You start remembering things that are important in something like a human skull. And then that's how you get faster. That's how you get better. That's how you become a more prolific sculptor at the same time as well, right? You start to learn things. And by taking it more often, little doses and chunks, you will have way bigger strides and way bigger moments of aha for yourself. It's just, for me, what I learned, right? So now I switch and say, okay, this is a human eye, a human body, right? So if this is the forehead up here, right? Then our orbital bone also has a little crying feel to it, right? And then there's some bone structure through here, right? So your nasal cavity, and then there's still bone buildup here that needs to be for a bone, and then there's some more buildup here, and then now you're gonna have to put more of a forehead in here, and then in here you have to temporalis, because there needs to be muscle that lands here, right? This is what I mean by bony landmarks are so crucial, because then everything else just starts falling into place if you are landing this stuff, starting to land this stuff correct, right? Like right out the gate, it's already starting to look like a skull, and this ain't anything incredible. Okay? So this is what I mean for me, like this. And then I would say, for me, the zygomatic is such an important bone, that bone structure, and then getting that, how it actually goes into the orbital bone, kind of makes like a triangle right there. Then again, I got to cut in here. I need to make room for teeth. I need to make room for the masseter bone, like the muscle. The muscle is going to come from here underneath the zygomatic and connect to the jaw, right? Then I want to make sure my jaw is actually aligned correct, right? And it's just try moving actually faster, not slower, right? And let gestural things, and as you start landing things in the right spot, I'm telling you, the model's just going to automatically come to life, especially when you start putting some stuff in here, right? So it's just, it is more simple than we think it is, in all honesty, right? It's, it all comes with time too. It's just, give yourself some time. Don't overwhelm yourself. And that's why I think it's so important to just pick something very simple to sculpt, so you're not overwhelming yourself. And then you're having moments of aha moments, right? Where you're like, oh, okay, now I'm getting it, right? And then so this is kind of what I start to do, is just start landing parts that are important for this, right? And then I start looking at more bone structure and making sure I'm landing that right. right? And then this would be, oh, you know what? I can see something off here, so let's move infinite. I want the jaw to come more down. I can see that that is a gap issue in there. And then I know that the jaw has a little bit of an angle right there, right? And then these are things you start to learn. And then this starts rounding out in there. And in fact, there's a little bit of a bone structure right here that gives you a little, there's like a little nub here in our skulls, right through there, right? This kind of stuff. And then you just keep progressing. Like, this is way too much. And you got to move, right? This is the problem I see. Some people do this, and then yes, and then they do this, and then yes. You got to be, okay, I made that stroke. Now analyze that from multiple angles and see what's off, right? My forehead's off. There's a lot of things off right now. But I'm only going to catch that if I'm taking the time to start moving around the model and taking a look at this, right? And seeing what is actually off here, like, and what do I need to fix, right? This is all like move around. Don't be shy to get in some more angles in this, right? And then you'll slowly, like, the forehead's so tiny right now in him, it's ugly. So like I said, it's not a perfect skull in any shape or but the foundational things are starting to happen and get there. That's what I would suggest to you. Okay? Michelle, I don't know about the GPU. We'll see. There's discussions and things like that. GPU, I know it's great and all, but it also adds a lot of other elements that are not great too in the same token. So multiple video cards support, multiple generations, drivers, and then the way ZBrush is now, you have to have, you know, maybe there is probably some room for us to do stuff for sure, where you as the user could maybe decide if you want to use your video card. Is probably the route my mind would go, especially because if I got a computer that's still older and I can't afford a good video card, or in this case we can't even get the video cards that we want probably, so that kind of stuff too. But nothing's a no for me. I'm always thinking of what can we do, so there's a possibility. You never know. You never know. I never say no. Okay, so you're recommending. Are there any plans to add control points to curves like the bend curve modifier? Be cool to have an array mesh to live editable curve like live scene in Nomad. Yes, there is some things that we're discussing and things that maybe a new curve mode could be a possibility. We'll see. I can't share too much because there's a lot of discussions we're having about a lot of stuff that it's all going to depend upon where we are in our some things that we're also trying to get added to ZBrush, as well as also some other new features that we're currently working on. This is really bad. It's an ugly skull. Ugly skull. Don't look at it all. Way too skinny. I'm worried we'll never be able to replace the old curves because would complain, but well, I wouldn't go that far, blood rapture. So all I can tell you is, yes, there are some thoughts, there's some things that we're thinking about and things that we are currently working on that we're hoping to get done really soon that you guys will get as new features. And a curve mode is discussions that are things that we have, because obviously our curve mode also does a lot of things and can be reused for a lot of things as well. So there's things we got to think about for that as well. But yes, there is lots of thoughts for that and see what we can do with that for sure. Now I'm falling down the rabbit hole of a skull. Oh, it's not mine. Now I'm like planaring it. It's the mandible's way too small. Way too small. I think all of it's too small. right? So this is where I would use probably the move infinite depth. That way, as I'm adjusting all of this, I know it's adjusting everything in a line, right? So it's just sometimes better to use this. Like it needs more of a forehead. Now we're getting a little bit closer to what we would want as a skull. Cry. Tell Will, make sure you make his orbital bone cry. Not that much. But there you go. Okay. Skull tangent is right. 100%. Okay. Back to the X-Wing. We had a big tangent. Okay, I'm going to load. I think I have some things that I want from the TIE Fighter brush. Let me load that brush. I think I still have that brush here. So let me go. TIE Fighter. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I want to put definitely something on here. So let's look at this. Let's hit the M key. I'm thinking, ooh, I like this. I'm going to put one of these on there for sure. I like that. And in fact, let's play with this a little bit. Do I want it to sit there? And then let's have it not so. Let's go here and be out. Do I want that or do I want that? Interesting. Maybe we do this instead. Okay, yeah, I'm going with that. Kind of like that. Let's add another element in it. Let's add one of these. And let's push this down. I'm going to push this over here. Let's offset it a little bit. Let's now duplicate this. And let's swap it with some stuff here. Let's see. Let's make it go that direction. Right, not so much. Okay, do I want to go with that? Right, so let's see what else I got. You know what, maybe this would be better. I like this thing a little bit better. Maybe I bring it all the way over here instead. Okay, and then let's take this. Let's mask everything else off. Let's make it stretch all the way to it. Do something like that. So now I got that everywhere. Adding a little extra element design in there, I think. It's a nice little addition. And I think I want to put something right here. Let's center that. Let's repeat. Oops. Okay, let's look at this. Let's do something like that. Let's center it. Yeah. And then let's make another one. Whoops. And do that. Just another little element in there. Just add some little other greebles. Okay. I like that. Let's take a look then again at this. Okay, that works for me. I don't hate it. You know what? I'm gonna do one more thing. Let's take this guy. Let's switch to Z Modeler. And let's add an edge loop. Let's insert an edge loop right here. And then I'm going to insert an edge loop probably. Let's now do, yes, let's do an X. Let's do go there. Oops. And let's go there. Let's take, oops, let's take Q-mesh it. Let's take this and like this. And then let's put a little ridge in there. And then let's take this. We are going to crease this. So we get just that. Okay, there. There you go. Now I'm a little more satisfied. A little touch in there. Just a little touch in there. Well, right now it is all low. All this is low polygon. Well, I don't know if you're referring to maybe when I was messing around with the skull. What is my favorite or coolest function in ZBrush? Oh boy. That is a very difficult question because of how much I know about ZBrush. Shoot. That's a tough one. That's a tough question for me. You know what? I'm going to be really corny. It's, in all honesty, ZBrush was the one application that made me feel like I was an artist again on the computer, right? I grew up doing a lot of drawing and things like that, and I loved using my hands. And I started in Maya 2.0, which was a ton of fun, and I loved modeling. Like my very first model that I was so proud of was I did a hornet, like a bee, bzz, like a hornet. And at that time, polygons weren't really a big thing. It was really all NURB driven with that, and I was just taking shapes and starting to mold things and make things look like it was working, and I really loved that process. So for me, having just dynamic subdivision levels allowed me for freedom to be very expressive fast and be able to go, and then just having the brush system to be the way it's built was amazing for me. But I'd say features that have changed my life as well, live boolean for sure is one of the most life-changing features for me for being creative inside of ZBrush. I couldn't live without it now. There's no way. I use it on everything. It's so useful. I love it. That is one of the most important features for me. And in all honesty, having ZModeler to now allow, do I want to do low polygon with things like I'm doing right now, or do I want to go another route, right? And do some other things with that. That has been huge for me as well. I'd say those are some of the big ones. And then using them together, especially with insert mesh brushes, I'm like, oh God, it's been amazing for me. I know I got cheesy there for you, but there you go. Yeah, Dynamesh is a game changer too. That has changed, revolutionized the way we all sculpt. Right, and that took, guys, that feature, as much as we all use it, when we released it, you know, people were like flipping crazy. There were some people flipping, doing like flips, but some people were like, I don't know. I'm just gonna box model and then divide it up, right? I would say that feature took a good year and a half before all you guys as a community probably really embraced it and started experimenting with it more. And I find that for all features, it takes that amount of time. You know, it takes time for features to nurture, for all of you to really wrap your heads around it, make sure you have an understanding of it. It takes time. There is an unweld points. So if you want to, there is. Okay, so I'm assuming though you want to unweld the vertex points, because there is a way to unweld by polygroups in there. Okay, there is something like that, right? So there is an unweld here. So you can unweld this way by an island, a polygroup island, or polys. So that is available for you, right? And then there's an unweld here, where you're going to weld by the edge. But I'm assuming you are referring to, you want a point unweld only, right? Yeah, it's something we can definitely look. Obviously, we're doing an update to ZModeler in the next release, right? There's presets. That's a game changer, man. The presets for ZModeler, I don't even live in this menu anymore, really. I'm living in my preset menu now. I love it. I think it was one of the best things we came up to make ZModeler go another level, personally. Yeah, ZBrush is insane. That one, yeah. Okay, so I would say, yeah, I can see about getting that implemented for sure. All right, I like this little piece. I want to play with this piece a little bit more. I want to, let's see, let's go with inserting multiple edge loops. Let's add some edge loops in there. Let's also let's have the polygrouping change. And then that way I can Q mesh, polygroup all. I want to have a little bit of a ridge there. Okay, and then now dynamically, let me knock down the coverage a little bit more. Now that I'm doing that, I just want to have a little bit more that the light catches something else is going on there, right? I kind of want to have a little bit more to it. Let me go a little bit more there. Okay, and then let's, you know what, I'm going to add another little piece in here. Let's go in here. Yeah, I'll do just because I haven't done one, I'll do a save next in a while. Let's see, do I have anything here? Yeah, I think, let me see this. I think I like this idea. All right. I just want something else in here. Let's go a lot smaller. All right, let's do local dynamic. Let's go a lot smaller, more. Have it live there. Do I like this? I'm like going on my own X-Wing tangent. I'm breaking away. I'm breaking my own. I'm making my own. Let's just focus on this a little bit more. Go a lot smaller. And have it sit a little bit more in the surface. Do I like this? And then let's make another one. I don't know if I like that. You know what I think I would prefer? Now that I'm looking at this, let's get rid of this. Let's use, I would prefer this, I think. Let's do no symmetry. And then let's do really, really low. Okay, it didn't draw out, interesting. Let's do this kind of more like this. Let's stretch it out maybe. Be a little bit wider. Let's go a lot, just a little bit lower. Let's see how this is looking. I think maybe go a little bit even smaller than that. Let's make a second one. Let's give it a little bit more gap. And let's mask this off. And let's bring it and make it smaller. Let's just mask that off. It's experimenting time. Yeah, there. That I like. That I'm good with. Okay, and it's kind of repeating stuff that's going on the X-Wing too. Okay, I'm a fan of that. I dig it. I like it. Save it.
Save it up. Save it up.
Okay. Well, thank you. That is very kind of you. I'm going to probably get the name wrong. I do apologize. Erald? I could be completely wrong, so I do apologize. I don't know if we'll ever have a perpetual license. I could not answer that for you. Couldn't tell you if we will have a perpetual license ever again or not. Right now, we're subscription only. What I wanted to say with the Gabo, I sent you the images and GIF of what I wanted to say with evenly smooth vertex through Instagram. All right, let me see. Well, there are free options, right? So obviously, the iPad version has a free version. Let me see what you sent on Instagram. I've been... Okay. Let me sub. 2 seconds. I want to achieve sometimes. Surface with basic modeling, you start from a basic shape like this, okay? If okay, hold on, you got a lot here, so let me see. I'm just seeing what you got. I'm looking at your GIF. It's not playing for me though. Okay, so you're starting with a cylinder. If I move or sculpt over to get some volume, I lost the perfect curvature. Okay, smooth, but I would like to keep this volume between the edges. Okay. I'm just going through you. Okay, so wait, I'm understanding this. This is a lot to digest. Hold on one second. I'm looking at your other video. 1 second, sorry. I'm trying to see what it is. So in essence, you're stretching the topology. In essence, is what I'm gathering. You're stretching the topology, and now you want to smooth it out, but then you want to keep the volume. Is that what you're saying that you want to do? Because like if you're smoothing out, you're going to lose the volume. You can't keep the volume. So what you're looking more for is a brush that kind of keeps the volume and then relaxes the topology without losing the volume. That's what you're looking for, if I understand. Correct? That's in essence what you want. Like you want to be able to, when it's stretched out, where did my pen go? When we're doing this, right, and this is the same shape. So if you do this, so my question would be, in your examples, you're doing this, right? And now all these polygons are stretched. So then you're doing like a smoothing so that the topology gets relaxed in essence, but you don't want to lose this arch. Is that what you're saying in essence? Okay, to answer your other question, is ZBrush working better when deleting the symmetry of the model? No. No. It doesn't change the performance. Unless they're using the alt, then yes. But not if you're just pressing on it. No. It's not changing the performance. Gabo, I'm assuming this, right? Because then you're trying to smooth this out. But then you want to kind of keep the arching. Like a low polygon situation, there's not really much you can do, right? Because if you want to relax the geometry, it's going to relax it, and it can't keep the volume when it's relaxed. So you want to get back to the cylindrical shape now, then. Oh, okay, so you want to get, so in essence, you made this error, and now you want to do this, but then it's losing, it's doing this. It's losing the symmetrical shape. Ah, okay, I gotcha. Well, there's nothing that's really going to do that except for I could use history to do that. If I had the mesh still with undo history ability, I could use that to get back to the shape, right? Because I can just use a marker to store that. And then in this case, I can, because the topology is the same, I can then use a morph brush, right? And then it'll morph it back to that shape, right? So you don't even have to store a morph brush. And then it'll get back to being the cylindrical shape. Like you could do that as long as you had the undo history, you could do that. So that would be, which obviously then you can also do a projection. Same thing too. You could do a projection. So that's what the history brush is doing. It's more of a projection. It's a projection that happens. So that also, but low polygon, you can see it doesn't work as well. Oh, well, I also might need to add Z-add. Right, because it's a projection. So you see you're getting a wavy in the topology, whereas the morph brush itself is all about putting the topology exactly where it was. So that would be two of the big differences. So you can use your undo history to do that. Okay, so again, if I'm here, and this doesn't matter. I could do this. I could do this. I could even do this. I can do this. It's not even relevant, right? So I've stored an undo mark way back in the beginning of when it was a cylinder. Okay, and then because the geometry hasn't changed, as long as the geometry hasn't changed, then I can use the morph target and morph everything back to a cylinder if I wanted to. Right, and then that'll even this out here. I can morph it all back. And then bring all this forward. It doesn't matter. It's just morphing it back. So you could go this route. Key thing is the topology needs to be the same though. Okay? So for the morph brush to work that way. You could also then use this to do, if it's not the same, you could use a projection with project history, right? Because I can now technically under subtools, there's a project history here. And if I click this, right, ZBrush is just looking at whatever the last undo marker is. So if I make this distance be a lot more, if I go all the way up, see, it'll just, and then knock down the averaging, up the averaging, right? You could go this route as well, where it's trying to project it back to where it was. I think morph is probably the best way to do it. Your only caveat is polygons have to be identical. So you want to isolate a part. Okay, hold on. So you want this, right? And skip. And this, right? This is it needs the whole surface for this to work. This isn't going to work. We don't have anything that'll just give you this back. And the undo history will work, but it needs to see everything, which you don't need to hide it because it's a brush. So the undo is only, in essence, going to happen where you're doing a brush stroke. You don't need to hide anything. right? And of course you can use masking if you want to as well, right? So some of the points now aren't going to move. Well, the whole point is you don't need to hide anything. Yeah, but if it's about the parameter, you first started, right? You got to remember, you first started, like when you started sculpting, you first started with this. You started with nothing, right? So that means you can use your undo history at any point in your undo history as you're working, right? It doesn't even, you can go crazy, right, and working on this. As long as you have a state that you can go back to where it's the clean version of it, you make that mark and then you come back and then now you just sculpt it out with the morph brush. So that would be a way you could do it. I would say the better thing would be to do, Gabo, is probably make a video of you talking instead of trying to do images, and then put it on YouTube as unlisted, and then you can give me a link to that video. And that way you can talk in the video instead of trying to do everything through a text and images. Yes, there'll be a ZBrush Summit this year, Comics Legend. Yes, there will be. We're working on it. Okay, if you're talking about this now, this, and then now if I do a delete hidden, okay, if I go to geometry, modify, delete hidden, right? Okay, so I got to delete hidden of this, right? This is what you're referring to? Okay, right? So now you've got this shape and now you're trying to get this back. You're not going to be able to do it. We don't have anything that allows you to do that. Unfortunately, there's no way to do it. Because if you just start smoothing, it's like you said in the images, it's going to do this. Right? You could try doing a relax of the deformer relax, but I don't think this is going to give good results at all. Like, yeah, it's not even able to relax it. So, this is not going to work. Right? And then this, now you need a morph, but I could use, since I have, go bigger, I could use this brush to at least get it back to this form. Right? This would be possible, so I could do this, smooth it out, and then, right? And then use that recall brush now. So in essence, smooth out with the smooth brush, right? You get this cavity. And then now, the undo history remembered that curvature. And then now I can use this brush to get back the curvature. Like I could go that route. Okay. Cool. Yeah, make a video and go for me. That'd be a great help. Next Friday, yes. Next Friday I will be streaming, yes. The following Friday I will not be. So yeah, make a video and everything, and then we can take a look at it. I can dive deeper into it for you. Yeah, the history brush is based upon camera angle, which you could use the transpose line. I mean, the transpose is at your camera angle, right? Because then I can go boom, and now I'm looking straight at that normal. And then now when I'm doing this, this is looking straight at that normal, right? I don't have to try and guess with my eye like this. If you turn on the gizmo, hold Alt and click on a vertex point, obviously that line, that blue line, is taking on that vertex point. And now if you now hold Shift and click on the arrow, we move the model to look directly right down that arrow. Whatever arrow you click on. And then now this is looking at what I want. And then now this is going to conform to this undo marker way back in the beginning. Right? So use the Shift to kind of relax everything, smooth it all out, and then use the history brush to recall it back to its form that you want. So that is something that can be done as a workflow. But if you have a better like a real life situation where like, hey, here's the model, I'm trying to get this to get back, that's even better, and you can share that model with me. Then I can bring it on the stream, and then we can play with that model, and then maybe I come up with a solution for you. There might be something else. I need to see the model. There might be something else that pops in my head when I see it, besides even using this workflow. There could be something else that I think of once I see the model that could help for sure with this. So, all right. So hold on, I'm catching up. So it looks like I got everything. Okay. All right. Are there any other questions that you guys have? Unfortunately, I got to get going. I have an appointment that popped up for me. I'm not going to be able to stay much longer. I made some progress on this. Not much, but I made some. I made some progress. That's what counts. My X-Wing is going to be a never-ending project here, I think, for us. In 6 months from now, it'll be done. I will have it. It'll be done. Whatever. It's the world that I'm living in nowadays. Trying to get things done. So, I kind of, it doesn't have it, but see, I can't stop now. I don't like the flat, flat, flat here. In fact, what? Let's look at this whole piece. You know what I want to do? What it does have. I know what it has. Okay, this is my last thing. I got to do this because now it's bothering me. Yeah, let's do multiple edge loops. Let's go that wide. Okay, and then I want another. Let's insert now a single edge loop right there. Okay, and what I want to do, because I need stuff to live in there, I want this to go in. I want that, and I kind of want, I'm feeling more like a little bit of a ridge right here, and I want a ridge like that? I think I'm gonna go a different route with the ridge. I'm gonna go like this, then let's do an inset, polygroup all. Do something like that. Then let's do an insert, single edge, yes, like that, and then let's delete. Maybe something like that. Do I like that? What is going on here? Insert edge loop. Interesting that it's not going all the way down. Never seen that problem before. Alright, well then let's do Q-mesh polygroup all. I'll have to look into that one. Another one to look into. Let's just do it that way then. And then let's do crease all. Smooth it. I've gone a little too aggressive with that. Okay, I like that back there. Okay, this needs to be smaller now. That needs to be smaller now. Okay, I went too aggressive with this. Too aggressive. Needs to come a little bit more in. And then now I also need an edge loop there to clean that up. Two, and then I'm going to put an edge loop here. I don't want it as rounded there. Yeah, there we go. I like that better. And now let me fix this portion. This now needs to be moved in a smidge. More. We'll go a little bit more. More like that. There. Happy little trees. And let's slide this bit closer. Don't be shy. Get a little closer. There we go. Yep. And then in the back, where's my little, there is something back there. What did they put? Okay. So let's go back to my handy dandy brush. And what they have back, at least on this model that I'm looking at, is I know I have something like that. I could have swore I made that be. I don't think I have my whole brush. Yeah, I don't have the whole brush here. I'm missing a portion. Let's see. I think what we can do is this guy. But let's look at it. Let's draw this out. Okay, and all I want is, I don't want this, I want that. And then let's take this. And say it goes there. Let's put that here. All right, let's make sure I'm going right down that normal. I'll go down that normal. And let's just make these be a little bit bigger. Let's do this. And we'll make sure going down that normal so we can do this. Let's take a look at what they did. Just get an idea of what they did. Okay, so they went the opposite. They did more of this stays tiny. Okay, and then let's just look at just this. Okay, let's make this a lot more. And then let's take this, make this a lot more. Okay, and then now something more like that. And then something more like that. Yep. And then something more like that. I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I'm happy with that. I'm not thrilled with it. I think I'm going to put something else there. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. I'm going to make something else for there. Not a fan. I actually just stick with what I got, what I originally drew out with. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. I'll come back to it. I'll come back to it. But I do like the other edition. Just gives it a little more volume, I think, and a little, again, a little change there. You're welcome. Glad I could help in any way. Okay, for example, smoothing a curvature of a helmet. Yeah. Yeah, you're looking more for a different brush. You're looking more for a brush also that has an understanding of what the curvature was. and then it can relax, then bring back that curvature. Or vice versa too. I would love a brush that I can kind of relax the opposite. I want to relax the topology but not lose the volume, right? So those are two different brushes though. Those are two different things I'd love to take a look at us diving into for sure. All right, unfortunately guys, I gotta go. I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining me for my rambling tonight and today. I didn't get everything I wanted to get done or where I wanted to be, but we made some movement. We made some progress, a little bit of progress on some stuff that I wanted to do with this. So I'm happy with what I accomplished today, except for that back end. I just continue powering away on this wing and moving through it. Well, I appreciate you very much, Blood Rapture. You guys taking time of your day and spending with me. Again, I love it. I am back committed to trying to stream as much as I can with you all. So that is my goal, is just constantly keep streaming. Unfortunately, I cannot stream every Friday. It's just my schedule's, especially this next month and a half. But I'm excited to see you guys next week. Again, we have special streams next week. So let me finish off with that and give you guys the links of that stuff just so to make sure you know about it. Because it's really important. I will be streaming next Friday. Okay, but if you haven't been visiting ZBrush Central, I'm hurt. I'm crushed. Why not? Okay, and so there is a special feature stream that we are doing. So if you guys want, this is going to be next week. It's the 3rd, Thursday the 3rd. And so obviously you can watch it here where you are at any of the stations you're at right now. But obviously we're on YouTube, we're on Twitch TV, and then we have ZBrush Live. So we're going to have a special stream showing you guys what's coming down the pipe for ZBrush. Okay, so if you can, I would say please make that stream. It will be recorded though, so you can watch it over and over and over and over and over again if you wish. But it'd be great to see you there. Okay, so thank you again. This is Paul Gaboury, been with the ZBrush team. I really appreciate everything. Thanks for being with me. I will see you all next Thursday and next Friday.